All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. We are going to do some adjusting.
Let me go ahead and do roll call.
Okay.
John Thomas, Dr. Avegno. Here. Lieutenant Monaco,
Here.
Herman Jason Franklin, Dr. Nichols, Tyrell Morris,
Present.
Danielle Mitz, Barksdale Hortenstein,
Here.
Deidre Hayes, Sade Dumas, Alexa Peterson Berg, Dalton Sapwa, and Carolyn Schexnayder. All right, we don't have a quorum. We just need a couple more.
Thank you. And just for the record, I did receive a formal resignation from Lexi Peterson. So we'll notify District C to reappoint their appointee. All right, so we have the May 23rd minutes. We don't have a quorum, so we can't vote them into maybe. For the record, Dr. Marino has joined us. You good?
Sorry, two more. So one
Okay.
more now.
Okay.
7 total.
Great, we'll come back to minutes if we do get the quorum. You need a few more minutes as well?
Give us a couple more, but if you're ready for us, we'll go.
No, I can go ahead and move to item 5, just to kind of level set for the group.
Sure.
This special task force, the ordinance that created it will shutter this task force on September 30th. And our recommendations are due to City Council on recommendations for these initiatives to move forward. In the interest of formality, we do have, I believe, 5 draft recommendations that I want to read onto the record just for the public and also my task force members, and also even our representatives today can speak to these draft recommendations, because the next time we all come together, we will be voting on the final version of these items. Make sure I get my. All right, so we have 5 draft recommendations, and I'll read them verbatim again. The final report will expand them and grow them. But I just wanted, while we're entertaining public comment, I wanted to read these at the beginning of the meeting, and so we can have them in our thoughts as we go through the rest of the meeting. But the first recommendation is to support the Cantrell's administration use of ARP funds for the deployment of the Mobile Crisis Response Program managed by RHD, and ensure the continued funding through the FY23 budget. Second recommendation is to pass an ordinance requiring the Metropolitan Human Services District to give a quarterly presentation and report to the New Orleans City Council Quality of Life Committee on their initiatives and caseload. Third recommendation, as a part of the contract between the City of New Orleans and RHD, require RHD to provide a quarterly report and presentation to the Quality of Life Committee of the New Orleans City Council on their progress, workload, and initiatives. 4, fund an outreach and marketing campaign around the use of 988 in the FY23 budget. And recommendation 5, create a grant program that allows nonprofits the opportunity to fill the gap in long-term mental health services where there are no state services currently available. Again, those are very high level, very preliminary, and we will use the meeting today, public comment, your presentation to finalize, expand, grow, shrink, modify recommendations for final adoption before this task force shutters on September 30th. Any questions from the group or comments from the dais on those 5 recommendations thus far? Easy peasy. All right. Well, Archie, I would say if you all don't mind, let's go ahead and roll into your presentation.
So I need to use this?
Yes, please, for the people watching.
Okay, great. All right. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Well, oh, am I good? And then I just hit the arrow. Okay, great. My name is Sean Randall, and I'm the Service Line Director for Resources for Human Development, RHD. And we are really excited to be here. I really appreciate the task force having us today. I want to talk a little bit about what RHD has been doing in the way that we engage with the communities that we're present in, and speaking to what we've done across the country, and then also here at home in New Orleans. So this slide that you guys have in front of you talks a little bit about 4 areas where over the course of time, there's been strong need. And even way back, if you look at the bottom of your slide, 1972, there was a need for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be able to have a place to do meaningful work, to make creative art, and find their skills and purpose in that work. And that opened art studios that were day programs for our folks with intellectual developmental disabilities. Over the last few years, you could see that there was a strong need for a specific service for folks that were trans and gender variant folks that needed services. And so we have a residential service, recovery service called Morris Home that met that need. And you see the other places where the needs of the community really drove the direction of where RHD was going and the services that they provide. And then when we look at our history for here, we have a long history here in the state, specifically in the greater New Orleans area. Way back in 1997 is when we had our first service open up here in Louisiana. It was Mobile Crisis Services for Jefferson Parish. And then that led into assertive community treatment teams. And over the next 12 years or so, we expanded that assertive community treatment and the mobile crisis services to Orleans Parish. In the meantime, I would like to highlight Family House. Family House was a residential treatment service for moms and their children. It was the only service of its kind in the state of Louisiana. And we were really excited about being able to have that service for the time that we did. It really filled a gap because most substance use treatment, as you know, has the person go inpatient and they can't bring their kids. So Family House was definitely something we are really proud of over our time here. Women's Space was also a residential service for women that were homeless, lots of outreach and support around that. So as the community has earth needs, both in social services and homelessness, we've been there to meet those needs. And so as we're being flexible and things are changing, we are really at the ready, excited about what we want to bring to our community. So there's a couple others there. When we talk about, what we're doing for this project, I love this visual because it helps us to see this 4th opportunity for emergency response. And as we've done our research, it looks like we're one of the few, maybe the only, that is having this type of response. A lot of cities are doing that co-responder model, but to really have us as a part embedded with the emergency response team for behavioral health and mental health emergencies is going to be a really exciting opportunity. For the 25 years that we've done crisis work and crisis intervention, we're bringing all of that experience and all of that knowledge to this project for the city of New Orleans. And we're really, as I said before, super excited about it. And then here's our implementation timeline. So we're really kind of looking at a long stretch. We are not in the business of over promising and under delivering. And so our timeline reflects that. But I just want to let everyone know that as we're looking at the different stages that we are targeting, we hope to get up and running as soon as possible. But as far as our experiences recently with recruitment, hiring, the market for jobs and hiring the folks that are in these positions and have these credentials, it's been a little bit of a challenge. So we want to make sure that we have all that we need to tackle that and staff appropriately for the services that we're going to deliver. And this just kind of outlines some of those big picture things, right? Like at the high level, once we get the contract, a month out from that, we want to start stakeholder engagement immediately. This will be a wonderful partnership with so many of our community agencies and city agencies. So we want to be, starting off there and having that continuously as we move through the process. We imagine that at by the 3-month mark, we'll have our staff, our leadership portion recruited and hired, have a location and all that set up. So office up and running as we calibrate with OPCD, CIT, and New Orleans. So, and then looking to hire the rest of the staff in month 5 with ongoing technical assistance. We've finished our vetting process for our crisis call platform. And so we're really excited about that. Behavioral Health Link is where we're looking to connect and to provide us that technical assistance to provide both mobile dispatch support as well as documentation and electronic record for those things. And then, as we said, month 9 is where we would launch service and be ready to take live calls at the very latest, hopefully sooner than that. So that is briefly quick overview of what we want. And we would be love to come back and take a deeper dive as we're walking this path together. So any questions, if folks have questions, I might be able to answer them. And if I don't, we can circle back around.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And as the executive sponsor of this particular contract, Dr. Beck, I don't know if you want to add more or speak to it, and I'm sure we'll have some questions from the dais.
Sure.
I think I'm doing this right. Yeah, no, I think we have been very careful and very deliberate in building this contract and getting all the players together because we know that this is something new and we want to get it right out of the gate. And I think that we've been able to work really well with RHD and several of the other partners here, even at this early stage, to make sure that we all have the same expectations of how the program is going to work. And I think we've done that. Another thing that's really important to note is that this program is going to be citywide when it launches.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big ask, but I think we all agree, and I know it's a priority of the administration and I believe the council, that if we're going to do it, it needs to serve the entire community, that it would just be too fragmented, too difficult if we tried to pilot it in one place or the other. So that does add a little bit of complexity, but I think it's important for citizens to know that when we are ready, it will be for the entire city. And hello, Jan.
Hello, Dr. Pegno. Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
Good evening. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Absolutely. And I just want to provide the public some clarity on what this is, right?
Mhm.
So we've been talking about the needs. We've been talking about an RFP process. The city has been going through to procure a mobile crisis service. This is the result of that. Now, we've been talking about this since the committee existed. And I wanted just to demonstrate, hey, day one, we said we're going to do that. And today we're showing you, hey, a contract has been, a vendor has been awarded. And so on behalf of the city, I want to thank the administration, Dr. Begner, particularly you, for just gladiating for the initiative. So my understanding of what this program is, it will replace our existing pilot. I did some media yesterday around the existing pilot, and we knew that was not going to be the end all be all. It was not citywide. It was just provided an immediate relief to the New Orleans Police Department when we identified that a law enforcement presence was not necessary. I think this is the comprehensive approach that we have been looking for, that the council put this task force together to evaluate and ensure comes to fruition. But also we have a responsibility to demonstrate what's the resources the administration needs and you all as a contractor to make it continue in the near future.
Absolutely.
And so our recommendations around you coming to make a council presentation every quarter, our recommendations around proposed funding for FY23, are those things you feel like you could do, and two, anything else you think you need from this group to recommend to council, either legislatively or funding wise, to ensure that you are able to deliver?
Yeah, I think we can do those things. One of the things that I'm really proud of is our partnerships. We love close communication and really sharing data as we move forward. So I think that those things are definitely doable. We appreciate, obviously, the funding is critical. I think that to Dr. Ofegno's point around making sure that we're staffed in a way that we can reach all of the needs of the city is really important. And I don't, at this moment, I don't know if there's anything else that we need, but I'm sure we'll, late as we move through this, there may be some other things.
Right. And my understanding is, we always have the intention, the full blown kit and caboodle is, you have the initial you take the calls off the burden, but also the opportunity to respond with law enforcement. It's kind of like phase two. I think about only because in communications, we get everybody's requests for resources.
Mhm.
We have barricaded subjects or hostage negotiation situations or domestic violence that has kind of taken an avenue gone left per se. And we I think the police department understands that having a clinician on scene with the negotiator, I think we've seen over and over again where that is the best possible outcome for everybody involved, for the officer safety and the people we're trying to talk out of a crisis situation.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, I think that's the goal for everybody, but we got to walk, we got to crawl before we walk, right?
Absolutely. Putting that infrastructure in place to start. And I mean, those are things that we have experience with, responding with the police. So we come ready to do that when we're at that stage.
Cool. Any questions from the days?
Yeah. So this is probably too early to get down to numbers and stuff like that, but I do want to highlight some of the concern we've had in the past with similar programs over the last 15 years that I'm aware of, with capacity to respond and having insufficient staff where only one team is available and there's more than one crisis at one given time in the city. So when you're talking citywide, I think that's really important, and it's vital that we have a citywide program, but it's also vital that that citywide program be staffed adequately and supported financially to be able to make those calls and to be able to respond, especially to nonviolent calls that don't involve police interaction, as this committee was set up for. So I wanted to take an opportunity to make sure that's something that y'all are actually trying to staff for ahead of time, trying to provide the details to this, not to this committee, but to this city council, so that they can fund you adequately to meet those needs. Is that something y'all can speak to now, or something that you'll be addressing in the future?
You know, Sean, our staffing pattern initially was informed by the data. So that's a good place to start, right? But it is only a starting place. If we find we need more, we're running 3 shifts of 2 teams per shift, except for what we consider to be maybe the lower volume time. But of course, that's going to be flexible, and we're going to wrap it around the specific times we need to.
Yeah, I would say we spent a lot of time going through this, coming up with, my team and the RHD team went through many different iterations and models. And as Jan said, we're going off of the data that we had largely from Tyrell, but we don't know whether that's going to be in real life, the actual need, or maybe as people hear about the service and recognize what it could do, it might even be more busy. So I think though that, we're going to have that ramp up where we will know within a couple of months, we are adequately staffed, we are overstaffed in some way, or we're understaffed. And at that point, we will be keeping track of data monthly. So we'll be able to pretty quickly, I think, get a sense of, we're okay for now, or no, maybe we need to go back and ask, but we'll know what to ask for, right? Is it an extra team at a certain time? Is it whatever? So that is, we're going to be building the plane while we're flying it a little bit. But as Jan said, we didn't just kind of pull the numbers out of the air. What we came to with the teams was really based on the data we have available.
Well, and to that point, actually, I think that having a mechanism in place for that feedback is going to be critical. And so having the ability for the public defender to reach out and say, hey guys, we've called y'all 3 different times and no one responded. We need to buff this up. We need to increase our capacity. Having a chance for the public to say, well, I've met with the crisis intervention team and it was not a good, outcome. Let's talk about it. Having those mechanisms in place. And I want to make sure, I know another council member brought this up offline, and I want to make sure put it online, is we definitely want to have some capacity for feedback from the community, for feedback from other actors that are involved, but maybe not city, institutions like the police, to be able to give some feedback on how things are going and encourage change in a way that we think the city is calling for it and the model suggests is needed.
I think
Absolutely.
I think it's why the quality of life committee of the council is the best place for that presentation.
Absolutely.
That monitoring entity to ensure that the intention is being met with the results we're looking for. And so, I mean, there are many other council committees, government operations. And so when I saw quality of life, it just made sense because,
For
this
sure.
particular issue not only affects the quality of life of the individual in crisis, but their families, their communities, the system as a whole. I
Absolutely.
think being led by Councilmember Harris, there's an intentionality there to ensure that those resources are applied in a way that we all benefit
Mhm.
from that services being provided. I will say though, Dr. Avegno mentioned the data we provided from 2019 about we had 6,000 mental health calls. More than half of them were deemed nonviolent and no
Mhm.
weapon. So it's for us, category for diversion. Just my experience being in a 911 center every single day. To the last 2 years, if we ran the numbers again today, I think we'll probably see a 25% increase in mental health calls we get to 911.
Totally.
Because I think the whole our city, our system, the world is mentally unstable.
Most
Sign me
COVID.
up. You probably come to my house one day. So I'm just
Yep.
saying that we may be dealing with a different workload than we first planned for in 2019. But hopefully, as people finally engage and get treated, get services, get access, we can levelize and
Mhm.
stabilize to a place we once were pre the pandemic. But I mean, my experience, just at OPCD alone in the last month, I've had to refer to 5 of my staff members for mandatory counseling.
Mhm.
So it's different.
It is.
Tyrell, addition to that, at the time, you're talking about 911 calls, and there is a percentage of the population that's aware that calling 911 for people having psychiatric breaks is not a helpful outcome. So, hopefully with this kind of response unit, you'll actually see an increase in the availing yourself of the opportunity to get treatment and the opportunity to get help from non-LEO involved parties that can divert, especially nonviolent issues, to hospitals and treatment where they get help that they're needing.
And looking forward, we've already been applying for some grants to cover those periods of time that we have the one team rather than the two. So we are thinking ahead already and where the gaps or shortfalls were in funding, but where we may need it later. And so Travers has been a big help with that.
Yeah, and I would also, to your point, when you spoke about just accountability, I think that we are excited and leaning into the external accountability, but RHD is definitely about that internal accountability. We are talking about performance, measurement, management, improvement, that kind of stuff. And so we internally have a bar of where we want to be able to say, hey, let's do surveys, stakeholder surveys, participant or those person served surveys to really get the feedback, because we want to know if what we're doing is working, not only from an administrative perspective for the city, but also for the people that we're serving. Because this is not just a job venture for us. This is really about delivering quality services and really hearing the information, because there may be feedback that we need from that person who's experienced us that we might not get any other place. So I just want to let you know too that that's a part of how we do our work. All of our programs here are CARF accredited in Louisiana. So we have that entity that's also holding us accountable to high standards around our work. And we want to, because we want to deliver awesome services, because the people of New Orleans, our community deserves that for sure.
That's very exciting and good and hopeful. I do think that we need public facing information
Absolutely.
on this as well, because it's not just about the internal metrics running right. It's about the reputation of the community and
Mhm.
others knowing that it's being held accountable and that it's benefiting, and to tamp down feelings of despair in this area that has traditionally really been underserved and fallen by the wayside.
For sure. Mhm.
Turn your mic on.
Okay, thanks. Which disciplines are implemented within your team scope?
You wanna take that, Jen?
Sure. It's definitely a huge multidisciplinary team. So we start with certified peers, licensed clinical social workers, non-licensed social workers and counselors, people with lived experiences, as well as individuals who are going to lead the charge, right? So psychiatrists, we will have a nurse on call. That's required by LDH, just in case we had a medical consult. So it's an array of people, so that the person in crisis is going to attach to one of those people.
That's true.
Yeah,
Mhm.
one that can use their life experiences to tell their story, right? And someone to assess.
Mhm.
Remember, our goal is least restrictive setting,
Exactly.
and we take that very seriously.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Would you mind staying put for the next agenda? Because I may have a question particularly about potential around 988 once we get to the next agenda item. Any other
Ready.
questions on this? All right, great. So you're on the spot, Dr. Vegno. Just update the group on the state's initiatives around 988. And I mean, I can say it's live, we get calls, but I know there were some other things about opening centers throughout the state. And
Yeah. Separate things. I think, I'm not sure how widely known the transition to 988 has been nationwide, but very, very high level. It is now in every state a number that you can call for someone experiencing a behavioral health, mental health crisis of any kind. In Louisiana, and I'm looking at my team, just if I say anything wrong, please let me know. In Louisiana right now, that's being operated by 211 via Link, who do have extensive experience in this, and then routed appropriately.
Yes.
Most of the, and Jen, you probably know about this too, most of the cases they can handle themselves. I believe they can outsource to various crisis text lines. And I believe you've gotten a few calls that they felt met the level of 911 and needed a local response, correct? So it's very early in stages. I don't think we have utilization data yet. I don't know that that will be meaningful for a little while, but it is something that, you know, in our mind with this program, we hope that folks will call 988 and then get streamlined to this
Right.
program if appropriate. So that's going to be part of building the relationships when this program is officially
Absolutely.
online.
Yeah, so Dr. Vegno is correct. We have, since the start of 988, received a couple of individuals that have called 988 and that the clinician on the phone determined that there was an imminent threat to life safety, and the call did come to us for an immediate response, which is how the system is designed to work. With September being National Suicide Prevention Month, it just meant that I wanted to take an opportunity to inform the public that it's here, that 988 in Louisiana is live, it is available, it is 24 hours, you can call and text 988. But as we look to where people may go, right? And so if the citizen calls 988, they may go that route. Is there an opportunity for them to get to you that way? I know there's a way if they call 911, right? With this contract, our protocols will determine this is more appropriate for RHD. But if an individual does call 988 and they don't need a life safety response, but maybe, are you tied into 211 to receive referrals via Link?
Already,
Okay.
they will pass to our existing teams.
Okay,
And so, you know, Sean and I really are committed to no wrong door,
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
right?
great. I think we all are.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's one of the partnerships that we're going to be working to help build out so that we do establish a protocol for a 211 that's in Orleans Parish that would meet criteria that's consistent with your criteria. We don't want to have differing criteria depending on how you call.
Yeah.
So I think consistency is really important.
And I just think for us, like making sure that we're building capacity for all that's going to come our way. I know as our search for that that software and that platform, that's something that we've been thinking about, like that we would potentially get all of those calls and being able to manage it coming in as well as going out as far as data and tracking all of that.
I recently went to a 911 conference, ones we have every year, and this is a hot topic amongst all major city 911 directors. And we often meet quarterly, but we meet in person once a year. Major cities, Philly, Atlanta. And this was like the topic of the day, with the whole day. And traditionally, we have always said, you know, those low acuity calls, non-violent, no weapons, are appropriate to send to alternative dispatch. But we have some cities that have gone a step higher and say, you know what? There might not be a weapon involved, but just because someone may be excited doesn't necessarily mean they're being violent. And so maybe we can try and send them to those as well. And overwhelmingly, the response has been, you have a much better success at de-escalation than a person in uniform. And so we may see that.
It's a trigger. That's why.
Absolutely. And so I love the way you have articulated on this chart, because you're becoming your own independent pillar of public safety.
Mhm.
And we've tried so hard to fit you in somebody else's box. And I think it's time that you all stand on your own 2 feet. I'm just so happy that we're at this point. The city should be excited about it, and the people who are receiving your services. And honestly, the families that call 911, where they just want questions answered, the sense of despair, and we don't really have a place to send them. Finally, I can say, you know what? call RHD. They'll give you all the answers you need.
Absolutely. I think education is a really big part of the support that we provide, right? Helping people understand what they're dealing with when we're supporting folks in crisis. And that's really helpful.
Wonderful. Any other questions for our guests? Thank you all for your time.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I'm gonna jump in late.
Okay.
I just on the last topic you brought up, I just want to make sure it's not exactly on topic for what we're doing here today, but with that data collection, I did want to highlight one of the problems with the system is the lack in adequate care facilities, not just in response teams and
Mhm.
police officer training and things like that, but actually places for a person to get help and treatment that are
Mhm.
meeting their needs. And I want to make sure there's thought involved in how we're going to document the care that you provide, the transition that you create, and whether that is meeting the need or not. And if not, that feedback can be generated, because these are points of intervention that we really lack the active feedback awareness to lawmakers, to legislators, city council members, to say, hey, look, if we had a place for this person to be safely housed that met the level of security need that this person has, we could treat them and not just throw them in a jail cell, which so
Mhm.
often is the outcome that I am able to see on the behalf of our citizens that are having mental health emergencies. So
Right.
I wanted to just, even though that's not exactly what
Yeah.
this group is meant for, I think it's really vital to point out
Mhm.
that communication needs to be brought to city council. It needs to be brought to this administration and future administrations of government.
And I'll just be for the public's knowledge, the state is really taking the lead on trying to
Mhm.
build out a more comprehensive systems of care. As you probably know, they have a version of mobile crisis, but it is nowhere near robust as ours. And so we're excited to prove that this version is really going to be far more comprehensive, especially in a large urban setting, which may be a little different elsewhere. But step 2 of that is a 23-hour crisis receiving center. There is one open in New Orleans that serves Region 1. It is, again, getting off the ground. It is an alternative to alternatives. It is an alternative place where ideally if RHD goes or mom or family member sees a family member in crisis and brings them there themselves, a place for them to rest, stabilize, have a full assessment, and figure out at the end of a day, what do you need? Do you need an inpatient facility, or do we need to do something else? Right now, it is not quite there. It is open, but it's a lot more restrictive. And I think it's just they're building capacity. But that understanding, it's important for us to know how our program, which is going to be very robust, interacts with that, and can it handle what we're going to need to send it, and can it offload the emergency departments and the jails?
Right.
So we are very, very interested in how this program is going to interface with that, and are in good communication with the state to try and understand what their challenges have been so far. But I just wanted to let everyone know so people can be looking for that.
And I do think there's several buckets, right? We have this particular contract that addressed emergency crisis, mobile crisis, right? Go get the person, someone to get it off 911, police, and the public safety agencies. Yes, the state is opening a facility where people can take but then we have a provider today providing some level of service, which is Metropolitan Human Services District. And I do feel they're a little disconnected from the daily workings of city government, because those of us that have to make referrals, we're a little unclear as to what can or can't happen there. So this is why I think it's best that when we get to a more sustainability plan, that they also come to the table to inform the council about what services are available under there. Because my understanding is they have the ability to provide some long-term consistent care, right? Which may prevent somebody from coming to needing your mobile crisis response. But so they're an interface between all 3 of these together that need to come together. And I think that the council quality of life committee is a place to be the referee, but the gatherer of all those stakeholders.
It's the gumbo pot.
There you go.
It is.
Mhm.
And just as a sidebar, RHD also, besides the crisis team, is also now part of the new Crisis Continuum Louisiana Department of Health is rolling out. We also are able to take someone up to 14 days after that event and work with them to make sure that connection is strong. You know, and when, I know, Sean, you spoke about all the creative things we've done over the years.
I did. I sure did.
And you know how we got there? From the data of mobile crisis. And at that time, 20 something years ago, we didn't see the parish lines as much. And so the data did say a crisis team is really only as good as the resources, right? That can support those people. If not, we're going out for the same people for the same problems. And out of that came such creative ideas and programs, services, that the hope would be, if we do identify gaps, right, that we try to plug that safety net to that gap, or at a minimum, to your point, we identify it and bring it to you all.
On behalf of the task force, the city, the council, the administration, everyone, just thank you for coming today. You all go out there in situations that some of us will dread. And sometimes we may perceive something as safe, or you take risks. Just know that if you do encounter a situation that you need us, just call, we're coming to help you. So you help us, we help you. That's how we get through this together. So thank you all again for today.
Very welcome.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
Great to see you.
Thank
all.
you.
Do we have any public comment online? I don't see any cards in the box. And I don't have quorum either.
Right.
So, wow. That's it then, huh?
You've discussed the draft recommendations.
Mhm. At the
and,
beginning.
And the health department has
Yep.
made the presentation. Okay.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a lot of great things
Well done.
discussed today, and I think we have one more meeting to solidify the recommendations. Now the dreaded writing part is what really makes me anxiety, but we'll get there. Since I have a quorum, I can take a motion to adjourn, but I can't vote then.
We can adjourn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.